All right, I think that's everybody who needs to be here is here, so we'll kick it off. Hello and welcome to our 11th Town Hall, June 18th. It's really good to have everyone back and to get an update on what everybody is up to and where all the different teams are at. There's a lot to get through in this Town Hall, lots of exciting developments over the last 2 weeks. So we'll start as usual with new core contributors, and today this is going to be Rajani.
Hi, everyone. So we have two new core contributors who are joining us this week. We have, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this right, but we have Machi, who's joining us on the UX team, and Josh, who's joining us as a new business developer. Also, side note, we still have 20 open roles, so check them out and refer people if you know someone. Next slide. Okay, so we have a quick update on events and people update. So for events, we will have a new process of how to submit a request for team offsite, summit, or any type of offsite. We have instructions that are laid out on our brand new page on the People website where you can check it out. We also have a new email address for events at status where you will be able to submit all the requests with relevant information and or ask questions. Expense update, we have updated Expensify so that when you are submitting an expense, you just now need to categorize your expense. Nothing else has changed. You'll just notice that when you're submitting an expense, it'll ask you to say co-working event, hardware, or travel, et cetera, and you can just add that in with your expense. And then some event updates. We have DevCon and Hackathon information. So DevCon will be the 30th of October through the 2nd of November. And our Hackathon will be the 26th of October through the 28th. Make sure that those dates are saved. I will be sending out logistical information and everything shortly. You will be able to find all of that information on our handy new events page, and you can follow along for updates in the Slack channels in #events.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rajani.
No problem.
I really recommend everybody that comes to both DevCon and that hackathon. We've got some really exciting stuff planned for that hackathon in particular, so make sure to save those dates. They're super important. Just to reiterate it again, it's the 26th to the 28th is our hackathon, which is before DevCon. So make sure that's in the diaries. Johnny, for the marketing updates.
Great, thanks, Andy. And I'm going to call on Kim and Sean for this one today as well. So there's a lot of ongoing work at the moment. I wanted to talk about the Tech Talks. We'll be kicking that back off, working with Sari and Steph to schedule. So if you want to give a talk, ping me, Sari, or Steph, and we can schedule it. Some interesting ones coming up this month. So stay tuned for that. And then also, we want to work with each one of you, people from the team, to give team updates. You guys are closest to the work, so if you can give us an update on your swarm, on anything interesting you're working on, please ping me, and I can help you craft a blog, create some content, and really just showcase your work. So that's that, and then over to Kim for State of Us and the ongoing beta campaign.
Thanks, Johnny. So the end of this month and the next few months, I think, are going to be incredibly exciting as we launch our State of Us campaign, which is used to highlight Jared and Carl's original vision and sort of the meaning behind the name status, with community competitions, a call for community video content, which is already coming in and looks amazing, which we will be editing into our brand video. We have fun infographic coming, swag, and then of course a launch of our podcast, episode 1 coming out soon with crypto wanderer Andy Tedhope interviewing founders Jared and Carl. Also planned for our podcast, which will be monthly. We'll be featuring core community contributors, developers, our UX team, plus some special guests like author Glenn Weil, who wrote Radical Markets and recently co-authored a post with Vitalik. So a lot of really good stuff coming as part of the State of Us campaign, and a lot of community involvement, which we're super excited about. And as with everything else, we'll be asking for community feedback on podcast guests. So get your list ready to share with us for who you'd like to see Andy interview. And then touching on beta, which I know everyone is waiting to hear an update on, the much anticipated release of status beta is very close. So this will obviously be a tremendous and significant accomplishment for the entire community, as so much work has gone into this. We have a lot of comms planned around beta that will closely tie into State of Us campaign. So I think the next few months leading up to the hackathon and DevCon at the end of the summer and into fall are going to be incredibly exciting for status. That's it.
Cool. So into community content, as Kim mentioned before, we're looking for anyone to help us out. Once again, we're creating like a 60-second video when we want to showcase the amazing community and talented people involved in this. So there's a link here to submit your content, and you can also ping Hutch in Riot or on Slack. So get in touch.
And shoot horizontally.
Yeah, similarly to the video content, we're looking for writing submissions from anyone. This goes along with the team update. So anyone from the core contributor team, if you want to share a thought leadership piece, please ping us, or anyone from the community. If you just want to share a story, please help us out. We want to showcase everyone once again. And then over to Sean for the ongoing community calls and advocacy work.
Yeah, cool. So we've just started to kick off the rounds of community calls again, which have been really helpful. We got some really great feedback from some of the Korea community members, and just across a broad range of issues, just to try and get ourselves, making sure that our content's hitting the right mark. And then it ties in obviously to the advocacy program. So thus far, we've kind of had a series of different calls with different members of the core team plus the community, just to get an overall feedback on the program, ways to kind of modify it. We've got a rough idea right now of what the program might look like. So it's enough to be able to formulate a brief. So we'll have more to share, I guess, in the coming weeks of what the timelines look like, and it'll continue to evolve. So expect more call outs for some calls.
Cool. And then just quickly, there's a lot of events coming up. Jared will be at DAppCon this week. Really exciting. Yasik's Ethereum client meetup is happening soon, so stay tuned for information on that. Once again, we're going to be involved in as many of the ETH Global hackathons. So if you're around the cities at the time, please feel free to ping me and we can get involved. We can get you involved in that. And then, as Johnny mentioned, DevCon will be taking place October 30th, along with our hackathon. And then I just wanted to call out one last thing. So we announced the first Incubate Crypto Strikers, and it went off without a hitch. The team did really, really well. We had a 250 pack giveaway as a promotion, and we saw some great chat in the public chat in status in #CryptoStrikers, and we gave away all 250 packs, I think, within the first couple of days. So really exciting to see that, and looking forward to the next Incubate. And that's it for us.
Thank you so much, marketing team. I'm also incredibly excited about all of the things that are coming up, and I'm very much in agreement with Kim. If you want to hear me interview interesting people, let us know, and please shoot video for us and make sure you do it horizontally, which moves us quite neatly, talking about community involvement, into decentralizing our OKR process. So OKRs are objectives and key results. It's how we organize our roadmap at Status. You can read the full posts at this link here, but basically we all came together in Bangkok last quarter and agreed upon our first set of OKRs and the process for doing so. We're now super keen to try and decentralize that and involve the wider community in identifying particularly what our objectives should be. And so we're keen to do that with actual SNT on the mainnet. It means that you can head over to our new research forum, which is discuss.status.im, and either copying the format that is proposed in that post that's linked in the slide, or starting your own topic using the OKR category. We would love to hear what you think our top objectives and key results should be. We'll then take those, brainstorm in the separate teams, and put up different surveys in Aragon's new survey app, which is on the mainnet, and allow people to actually vote on what the primary objectives and the highest priority key results should be. And hopefully in this way, we can begin to iterate towards a more decentralized governance process around what we work on, when we work on it, and how we think about what status actually is. So at the moment, you do need a MetaMask account to vote on Aragon, but we are working on making sure that you can do it through status. And we encourage people just to sort of, if you want to take part in actually voting on the OKRs, to have a little bit of SNT accessible in a MetaMask or status account. You don't need a lot. It's just enough to sort of show a skin in the game vote about what you really care about in terms of the future direction of status. So please head over to our new research forum. You'll see that I've actually sort of really tried to highlight here in study fundamentals as well that we would love to get as much community inputs as we can in terms of really substantive, constructive discussion around some of the longer term research issues facing us, and some of our thinking about what we really want to try and build together on this decentralized computational surface that we all share across the globe. So if you want a high-level overview of crypto economics, which is something that Oscar has been focusing on recently, he's put together a really, really great introductory post. There's some amazing resources out there in general about crypto economics. I think it's an incredibly important field of study, and one that is likely not well enough understood, both in the wider ecosystem and within status itself. So I strongly encourage you guys to get involved and ask questions or drop your own research that you found to be particularly interesting into that thread, so that we can really begin to share knowledge around crypto economics in particular, because I think it informs a lot of the possible solutions that we might find, especially in terms of making the right compromises when it comes to how we build our architecture, and then incentivize a community of people around the world to actually run that for us, so we can achieve, true sort of censorship resistance and decentralization, which is sort of the points of everything here. Also, if you want to dive deep into some of the sort of actual research questions that we're working on from a technical perspective, you can go and have a look at the revolution or ludicrous mode that was proposed while we were in Cardona. That's always a fun discussion, particularly given those names. I particularly am a fan of ludicrous mode, but don't let me influence you. And then if you want to learn more about our plans with data and user experience research, for things like ETH Prize, EIP0, and our own work at Status, there's another topic for that. And thanks to Mami for the incredible NLP and neural network that he's been doing to analyze some of the data that people in the team have been collecting. And then just because this is study fundamentals, it's always nice to go and have an actual readable description of how Ethereum works at its core. And so if you've been struggling through the yellow paper and struggling to make sense of some of the symbols that are used there in particular, the beige paper is the place to go. And again, for all of our developers in particular, I'd sort of really strongly encourage you guys to go and have a look at that, because there are some worthwhile insights about how RLP encoding and various other sort of more nitty-gritty and hidden details of Ethereum actually works. So now we move on to UX and UX research. So I think this is Dennis presenting today, or is it Patrick?
So I'm going to jump in. It's Patrick.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Andy. So yeah, so Dennis has been working on some new transaction flow mocks or designs that have been coming along quite nicely. So included here are links to the presentation and a prototype that he's built in InVision that has a more detailed step-by-step through the whole process of sending a transaction. So there's some really nice touches that he's been thinking about and working on, including, for example, here you can see just a nice, easy way to transition between address and contacts at the top of the screen, and enter in a public address if you want. In addition to that, on the confirmation screen, he's reworked that piece a little bit, so the details of the transaction are a little bit cleaner to see. So for example, we've renamed the gas price to a network fee, and we try and tally that up along with a representation of the fiat value below in the total section on the right-hand side. Another nice touch is this idea around notifying the user about being on the mainnet if they are on mainnet, and they actually have to tap and go through just one more confirmation before signing the transaction and sending it. So this will be particularly helpful while we transition from or into beta from our current releases. So the next steps for this is that I think you're just going to take it into some UXR sessions in the coming week. So stay tuned for some results about how people interact with this particular iteration. Yeah, sorry, so you can go on the next slide. Another thing that we wanted to highlight is our profiling survey, which I touched a little bit on last time, but since it's kind of in full effect, being fielded in 22 different countries, we have 91 people that have started the survey. That doesn't necessarily mean that they've completed the survey, but taking a look at the different types of profiles of people that are answering the survey, this can kind of give you just an idea of the differences in both the behavior of what they're using or the tools that they're using to do some of the key things in the decentralized space, but also maybe a little bit of the difference in their attitudes or their interest towards using status in general. So for example, we have examples here of like a median age of 31 between males in South Korea and the United States who have responded. You'll see that they use slightly different tools for phones and messengers or wallets, as well as their stated interest in the fourth line there about whether or not they're using it for trading cryptocurrencies or potentially more interested in status in general and the Ethereum and blockchain decentralized web value proposition. In that same survey, you can go on to the next slide. At the sort of the second half of it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to ask people about prospective features that they would like to see or potentially would be interested in at some point in the future. And some of these features are stuff that we're already working on that are in the pipeline, so to speak. And some of it is pretty future thinking. And so we wanted to get a sense of how sort of attractive or exciting some of these features are. So in this example here, you can see an example question where we've asked if you could follow public channels or groups. There are two questions that they rate on a Likert scale between, I'd feel frustrated all the way to I would love it. So if that feature is present, if you can do it, then they give a rating. And if that feature is not present, then they also give a rating. And you do a little bit of simple math, and then you get these nice plots of where the features actually end in a 4-quadrant plot. So we have these categories of attractive and different must-have and performance. And what you'll see here is a little bit of a trend going up and to the right of a lot of these features being in this sort of the performance category, meaning that people are excited about it and they are excited to see how status is going to kind of iterate and perfect these features over time, particularly around what we would say sort of the main key takeaway that we're taking out so far is that things related to chat are particularly interested. So ENS usernames or texting friends or buying crypto in chat rated particularly high in the category of I can do this, and it wouldn't really affect me, or it wouldn't be that bad. I could live with it if it was not there at this particular point. So we're going to continue to work on this survey and share out a kind of a little bit deeper dive with both the core contributors in the community in the coming weeks. We hope that we get some use out of that. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Pat. Yeah, there's some really exciting work in general coming out of UX and UXR, so thank you guys for that. We move into our Swarm updates now, and the core Swarm in their sort of beta goal. This should be Chad.
Yeah, hey everyone. So quick update, we've got 0920, it's being tested for release, and it should be going out perhaps later today, fingers crossed. And inside this release, we have an option to switch to mainnet, just like our last one, for adventurous testers. And we also have new features to include custom boot nodes, as well as new default boot nodes for better resilience and custom mail servers. And we've put these features in to give users more control and more in the driver's seat about the status experience. And we've also got improved UX and reliability. For beta, I know everyone's really curious about that. I'm excited to say that work is nearing completion for the beta milestone, and we're aiming for 0921 to be the beta. We currently have 8 remaining issues, and most of those are in progress or even in PR, testing. They're ready to go. And the goal is to cut the release on Wednesday and follow up with testing for the launch in the following week. And just a reminder, the beta will be available in the same way as alpha. So same way on the Play Store and same way in test flight for Apple. And there is the beta FAQ here that you can check out some of the questions around beta. A big kudos this week going out for the mobile team, who's taken releases from really months down to days. We're on a bit of a roll lately with a great cadence, putting out releases pretty much every week now. And now that we're hitting beta, it's a good time to talk about some of our like internal policies about releases and upgrades. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Igor.
Yeah. Yes, the next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, since we are planning to release a real beta version, and it's of course it's the most strict quality rules for this, and the worst thing that could happen for the app, for the user using the app, is to lose his data, and that means that we introduce new policies for each release that we will release. So first is to preserve users' data, and it essentially means that if you have something that you had in 0919, then you have to be able to upgrade to any of the future beta releases without losing anything. It means like contacts, chat history, accounts, and transactions, things like that. And the second thing is you should be able to successfully interact with the users with the lower version that you have. And essentially, it means that, for instance, if you will have the first beta will be like 0921, and you still should be able to send Ether or, for instance, send messages to users that have 0920, or later when we release like 0922, you still should be able to do that. So it's important that starting from now, you have to be able to successfully interact with the older, like users of the older versions of the application. Yeah, that's, I also posted that's the more like full policy post on our forum. So please feel free to discuss and read it. Yeah, that's all for me.
Thanks, Igor. Into the mobile app. And I think that this is your slide as well, Igor.
Yeah, it's me again. So it wasn't much work done in the energy efficient space because we were all essentially focusing on the releases and beta issues, except we had some experiments about how to move Realm from the JS to native code to just have more threading capacity in there. And yeah, it didn't work that well, but yeah, we tried this. And then the future goals right now, I don't know if we will do anything like this week, but after we release the beta, we want to, of course, remeasure, reassess the energy efficiency and things like that. And also, there is no slide here, but we have this this post on the discuss status IM that shows the core key results, and it also has the energy efficiency key result in there already filled in. So as well, feel free to browse our forum and take a look at the results and what was done during the first, is it like second quarter of this year, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Hugo. Yeah, and just to reiterate that Oscar kindly went and listed all of the OKRs from Q2. Also on its own thread in our Discuss forum, Igor has been amazing already and rated all of the OKRs that are relevant to him and how he thinks we performed in regards to them. And again, please, I encourage everybody, especially core contributors, to go and rank particularly the areas of your own expertise so that we can sort of measure as an organization how well we're doing with living up to our OKRs, because part of the process of decentralizing them, like I was speaking about earlier, is making sure that we actually measure this stuff effectively and can sort of report back clearly and succinctly on what went well and what went badly so that we can improve next time. And Oscar and Igor are leading the charge there, so thanks to them for that. Into Infra Tooling, this is Jacob.
Yeah, hi everyone. So there's quite a lot of changes from the past 2 weeks. The main one is now our infrastructure supports multiple cloud providers. So before it was only DigitalOcean, now it's Google Cloud, and going from now on, it's going to be much easier to add new providers, and it will probably be adding new ones soon to support the Asia area as soon as possible. Other than that, we finally have log aggregation. Using a full elk stack with additional RSS log, and that I'm going to show you a screenshot of how that looks like, and that should enable developers, testers to kind of more easily track down what's happening in our fleet, in addition to metrics we already had. In the other big things, now all of the hosts in our fleet are connected by a mesh VPN called Tink, which allows us to use all kinds of internal services running on those hosts without any worrying about authentications. It's all within our own personal VPN. And there's going to be an example of that in the slides. We're also getting more and more metrics, and that's thanks to most work from Dimitri and Ivan, which have created two services that give us metrics about boot node health and latency of our peer-to-peer network. Other than that, we have now the Discuss Status IM discourse community, which, as we've heard, is going to be used to discuss all kinds of research, technical issues, OKRs, and so on. And from smaller but important things, all of our internal services, like Grafana, Kibana, and so on, use SSL certificates. So that's good to have. And the main priorities coming next are using the available metrics and aggregated logs for alarming on all kinds of failures, and also preparing to create an anonymizing proxy for the application to limit the possibility of identifying our users based on their traffic. And we're also working on builds for our desktop application. If I can get the next slide, there should be just an example of what's happening in our fleet. We have now a console inventory setup that will be available in every data center, which lets us manage our fleets regardless of where they are with decent latency and reliability. So right now it's just Google Cloud, but sooner rather than later, we're going to be introducing additional fleets to increase availability. This kind of came out of what was happening in Russia with the massive IP blocking, but in general, it's just something we want from the start, which is less reliability on very specific cloud provider and having as many options as possible. The next slide should show us the log aggregation tool we have right now, and I encourage all the code developers to play with this and develop their own dashboards. There's definitely a lot of work to be done on parsing logs left and kind of cleaning up what's there. But what we have there is, I think, enough to help with identifying various problems that might show up in our fleets. And I think the way to narrow down and even just analyze the trends in our application should be made easier by this log aggregation automation. And just to underline what the VPN setup can give us starting from now on. In the next slide, we can see just two basic examples of how easy it is right now to collect information in our fleets about our eNodes or about alarms and metrics or whatever else you might want, without having to worry about any authentication. Just pull the data about what service you're interested in from our console catalog, and then just query it. It's just that simple. So I encourage people to try to play with it. If you have access to our host, and if you don't, just poke me and I can get you that. That's no problem. Of course, if you're just a core contributor, no one else. That's about it when it comes to infrastructure. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jakob. There's some really, really incredible stuff being done in that infrastructure swarm at the moment in particular. And like Jakob said, it's worth sort of trying to curl that yourself and seeing what you can do with it. Checking it out and playing around with some of the tools that he's building. It's very exciting to see that stuff, and particularly the service backup in Russia. These things are not easy to get right. So huge kudos to him for the amazing work there. This leads us into extended automated testing with Anton.
Hi, everyone. So with our some progress for last 2 weeks. Basically, it was increasing test reliability. There were a lot of changes in product, so we're adopting our tests, reworking them, and fixing according to those changes. And also, we managed to stop running against each release candidate for extended automated test suite, and also upgrade and battery consumption tests. Automated tests were created, and they will be used locally by test team for verifying upgrade and battery consumption. And right now we are working on replacing user flows when we have so we had in previous tests, we were like making a user flow through a test with several actions, but right now we are going to replace them with atomic checks. So number of tests will be increased, but they will test only one specific feature. And for future goals, yes, we are going to finish with these atomic checks. And one useful thing that we are going to introduce warning status instead of failed status for tests, which have the same error in APR and nightly build that have been requested by several people from Clojure team, and that should be useful. From lessons learned, yes, we've experienced a lot of infrastructure issues with long-running tests for message reliability. Basically, we can generate not more than 5,000 messages per test, and then we are facing some 54, 52 issues. They were solved. Basically, we just making another request, but also we faced a UI automator crash, and it's not solved yet. So right now we are using those tests for generating a huge amount of data, but not for testing reliability. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Anton. P2P initiatives, this is Oscar.
Is Adam online? No.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so some cool stuff happening in the P2P team. We've seen a sort of redesign of the mail servers, so to support more of a request response pattern, which is great for both reliability and we can have stuff like pagination and just generally having better user experience in the app, because you can actually see, you know, when you've fetched all your messages and so on, so you can give that feedback to users. And also sort of load messages as they come, like in pages, as opposed to sort of in one go. Also seeing some progress on visualizing the cluster. So both on sort of individual P2P nodes and generally sort of measuring cluster connectivity and capacity. And also some work is being done on sort of getting some visualizations of this, so we can see if the whole graph is connected in a appropriate way. Also have seen some nice work in terms of doing disruptive testing. So essentially seeing what happens if certain parts of the network go down, or there's something wrong with nodes and so on, and so sort of see how the network as a whole behaves, which is vital if we want to scale to more than a few hundred or a few thousand users and going up towards 1 million. And that's also something we're discussing a lot in terms of how we can make sure that we can provide a reliable chat experience for more users and what that requires, and sort of preparing for that already. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. That takes us into chats with Pedro.
Hi. So the last couple of weeks, we've been working on addressing all the blockers that come up as they come up for 0920, and been focusing on the beta release, making multiple UX improvements, enabling receiving push notifications on wallet operations inside a chat, allowing non-English chat names, a lot of smaller things, but still great improvements to have on chat. In terms of the OKRs, we're currently at 98.5 message deliverability. And so the latest survey we've had tells us that 75% of 30 users surveyed, they've reported that messaging is moderately reliable or better in 0919. As for future goals, we'll be focusing on delivering the beta and get updated metrics to inform our development, see how this 99 swarm stands. And we'll also be planning the roadmap and the OKRs for Q3. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Pedro. Really nice work there. Into wallet and accounts with ENS usernames coming up first. And this is, in fact, Barry who's going to present this.
Yeah. Just quick recap for anyone who's new or unfamiliar. ENS usernames will allow a user to register a username and associate it with their status public key and their Ethereum public key. As far as where we've gotten in the past 2 weeks, we've completed a initial prototype that meets the exit criteria, and or have moved to start deploy the contracts to testnet and start testing it there. We're looking to, in the future, continue along that path, but obviously get it eventually to mainnet once all the issues are addressed. In addition, just making a nicer UX experience according to Web3 standards, targeting an initial rollout as a DApp that would be accessible through Messenger, that would allow a user to either register a username or look up the public key given a certain username, but eventually hoping to get to a native integration, so it works natively within Status Messenger for a more seamless experience. And there's also the SNT use case there, where you can have a premium domain where instead of having to use the full .eth DNS, you can have a state of us one that will just resolve to a shorter username, as opposed to using a full prefix domain name and .eth. Also in the past week, we were possibly looking at integrating IPFS resolution, as was brought up actually with what MetaMask is doing. So there's a possible integration there, so that dApps that are hosted on IPFS or Swarm can be resolved using their .eth domain name. And this is sort of like an unofficial standard that's starting to come together, and so that's something we may look to mimic as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Barry. Yeah, this is really, really exciting to see come along. You know that we all love SNT use cases, and there's a quietly running competition at the moment to see who can register the name Dennis Shape and .eth first. So if you want to come out on top of that, then make sure that you follow Barry, and there's a channel 151 ENS usernames in the Slack where this work is taking place. It's really exciting to see such an intuitive and useful use case for SNT in particular. So that's great, and keep up the good work, that whole swarm. Also, resolving .eth namespaces would be fantastic to see. So we move into wallet improvements in general, and this is Goran.
Hi, everyone. From the wallet improvements updates, we've obviously done some bug fixing, but that's not the interesting update. It may be important, but it's not interesting. The interesting one is that we have support for send and request tokens in chat. So this PR is still in progress, and it's being reviewed. It's going to be tested and so on, but it should be merged tomorrow or the day after if all goes fine. Basically, you'll be able to start to chat with contact and send your ERC20 tokens as easily as you would send Ether. And the same goes for requesting. You'll be able to request tokens. So that's for the current progress. The future goals is everything that happens after the beta. This would primarily be implementation of the UX improvements that Patrick mentioned on this same call. And it should also include support for ENS in Wallet and, again, more bug fixing and refactoring. The most important lesson learned is that we need to reduce the complexity of Wallet. So everything you don't see under the hood and kind of, all the moving parts, because we need to push the fight with bug fixing to the other side and start preventing bugs instead of fixing them after the fact. That's mostly on the Swarm update side. Another note I'd like to make is that now that the Collectibles support in Wallet is handled by core DApps team, we're actually we're homing in on the exit criteria, and will hopefully be able to close this swarm soon enough. Close the swarm, if not the team, obviously. So that's the major updates from the Wallet improvements, Swarm, and Wallet updates in general.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Yeah, it's really exciting to see token sends enabled in chat as well. We march ever closer toward conversational commerce on steroids with that. So into DApps and developers, and this is Rachel's slide,
yes.
The team update.
Yes, thank you. So to build on what Goran just said, collectible support for our initial selection of tokens is close to wrapped. Julian has built out the UI, and the wallet can detect a user's CryptoKitties, Ethereum, and Crypto Strikers. Shout out to our first incubator team there. They've been giving us really great insight for our future work on developer tools. We're just working on one remaining issue now to support remote SVG images, after which collectibles should be ready for release testing, and our users will be able to have a much more complete view of their assets in the wallet. And again, it's our first foray into supporting ERC 721, which is important to us and something we're excited about. And we certainly have our eye on future opportunities to maybe partner with developers so that they can integrate their own collectibles, or perhaps to natively support collectible gameplay, things of that nature. Julian also had an opportunity to complete the second half of his extensions MVP and to test it within status using his demo, which loads from IPFS. So we now feel confident that there are no significant issues with having extensions in status, which is a great green light for us, because extensions and developer tools in general will be a major focus for us moving forward. Most likely, we're going to begin by working on bringing back hooks for chat commands. Our previous API that hooked with chat is deprecated, and there's a lot that we believe developers can do and benefit from if they can leverage status core functionalities, especially once they can access contacts, send messages, etc. A couple other things that are definitely on our roadmap. So the DApp team will handle ENS resolving in the browser. We want to be able to serve up content from decentralized platforms so that if you navigate to a .eth address, we'll display any associated content from IPFS or Swarm. The new documentation site, we have some progress there. Oscar and I had a chance to map out a very high level view of the content architecture, and we know where we'd like to begin, which is with a refresh of our build status docs. And we also know how we want to host the content. So our aim is to publish an updated version of that to a new status site very soon. And then lastly, we're definitely going to refresh the DApp list. We really want to encourage discovery of all the great DApps out there. We're currently at 42% of users over the past 30 days opening a DApp inside status. So just making sure that they have a lot to explore and that it's a great experience for them on our radar. And of course, we're also thinking about our team OKRs as well. We started brainstorming and hope to share something on the Discuss site soon.
Do it. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's in general, this DApps and developers Swarm is a really great one to follow, because there's some amazing work coming through, which is sort of really also just indicative of the power of interoperability within the whole ecosystem. So the fact that you can easily trade tokens through something like AirSwap, or collect these amazing cards in Crypto Strikers, or breed your cats to your heart's content, which is something that I know that Goran in particular fancies. It's really quite indicative of the fact that this is a whole ecosystem which Status is a platform to support, and it's it's fantastic to see that we can leverage the amazing work of others and provide our own sort of mobile and decentralized clients to let them achieve a greater level of decentralization. And it's this notion that a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's really, really interesting and exciting to see it's really beginning to happen as we move closer and closer to opt-out beta. That moves us into research swarms, the first of which is obviously Nimbus. So Ziad,
the update will be from me, Harry. So we kept making progress with improving the test coverage in the Nimbus virtual machine. We have passed more than 150 new tests since the last 2 weeks. And currently we are a little bit over 80% of the passing a little bit over 80% of the entire test suite. We hope to get this to 100% pretty soon. We have also transitioned all of our networking libraries to the new async core that we developed 2 weeks ago. So far, we haven't been running into any issues, and we hope soon to have additional benchmarks that demonstrate the new improved performance of this new code. We have also started we're pretty much completed the new binary trees that will be used for the state, to store the state of the Ethereum blockchains in the new sharded designs. And this is relatively pretty far in the future when we'll be starting to use this the binary trees, but it was something that we can implement, an opportunity that we can implement now. So for the next 2 weeks, we are will be entirely focused on meeting our main OKR goal, and that is Nimbus should be able to sync with the Ethereum blockchain and execute the entire history up to this point. One thing that we learned in the past 2 weeks is that we were able to identify some ways that the architecture of Nimbus can be significantly simplified and the performance can be improved if we move further away from the original design of Python PyAI VM, because the original design is heavily based on object-oriented practices like virtual calls and a lot of dynamic typing. And with NIM, we are able to get most of this away and resort to much more statically dispatched methods that provide higher performance. So that's it for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Zari. Yeah, it's really interesting that this has come after the DApp developers slide as well, and this talk about ecosystems, because these things obviously exist at very many different layers, and decentralization is a concept that gets sort of stretched across the whole lot and perhaps isn't spoken about specifically enough in different contexts. And so here it's really the whole NIM language and Nimbus as a project is really interesting to watch unfold, because the more clients we have capable of actually connecting to the Ethereum chain and validating transactions and running against it, the more decentralized and robust the whole ecosystem becomes. And so it's truly exciting to see this kind of work coming out of Status at a client level this time, not necessarily up at the level of applications, but way down the stack, making sure that we can actually contribute to the ongoing scaling efforts being sort of rolled out across the whole community. So thank you to you guys for that. And that also takes us into ULC, which is the ultralight clients. I believe Boris is presenting.
Hello, everyone. Last 2 weeks, we are working on polishing ULC. We made pull request with ULC to GUI Ethereum repository. So we had to make several bug fixing and data racing. We wrote new tests, which found new data race in less ULC package. I think we will finish it this week, and ULC will become a part of GUI Ethereum repository before next Townhall. After that, we are going to start ULC integration to Status Go, and think that's all.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Boris. Yeah, this is also genuinely exciting to see. The work on Light Clients by Boris, Eugene, Frank, and Zolt has been really a little bit difficult to follow at times, but fascinatingly interesting and incredibly important for the whole ecosystem, because like we always say, it's difficult to imagine changing the way in which society is organized, or at least changing the transactional patterns between humans without actually shipping this stuff onto tools that they use without making any compromises when it comes to decentralization and censorship resistance. And Light Clients are a big part of that effort going forward. So it's always an interesting swarm to follow this one in particular. We move on to desktop, and this is Vitaly, I believe. Or Yufe, I'm not sure. Anyone from the desktop swarm?
Hello.
There we go. Hey, Vitaly.
Hi. Yeah, I've had my Zoom restarted. Okay, so during the past 2 weeks, we've been working on some design implementation changes in scope of designs provided by Oiga. And there have been also some fixes with message and chat list reordering, and also the work on basically enabling copying of text from the chat window, which was not possible before. So these PRs are in review now and being worked on. Also, there was one change that didn't make it to this version of the slide, is also the design team had conducted a user testing and review. Basically, there have been some findings. There were 8 users who've been going through the desktop application, and basically most of the user interactions were quite good, except for some things related to adding new contacts and adding new chats. So this is something that we might be able to improve on. And so the work is ongoing on faithfully implementing all of the design changes to make them in line with the beautiful pictures that we have, instead of the aesthetic interface that is currently available. And for the next 2 weeks, we'll continue working on those issues. And also the big item, or actually items, is merging mobile and desktop branches. So we forgo for good the differences between desktop and development branches in status React. And this will help us to basically to facilitate the progress and fix some of the nagging issues, like issues when messaging between mobile and desktop versions of the app and stuff like that. So that's the progress for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vitaly. Again, really exciting stuff to see that coming along. It sort of moves us toward the end of town halls, and just before we go, a nice reminder about our tech talks, which haven't quite been weekly, but you would have heard from Johnny earlier that we are making sure that those get out as frequently as we can when we have good content. So if you do want to do a tech talk, I know that Jacek in particular is desperate to do one about Swarm, then you can sign up on the form linked to the sheets. And if you haven't caught up with Frank's introduction to the ultralight clients, the link is still there to that particular YouTube video, which takes us into Q&A. Johnny, is there anything from the YouTube channel?
There's nothing coming in from YouTube, Andy.
Cool. I don't think that there's anything in the Slack either. In which case, you can always, as always, feel free to ask questions in our Riot channel, which is at chat.status.im. And please don't forget that we've got all of this stuff being opened up to the community, whether it's the video competition with marketing, or suggesting guests for the podcast that we're putting together, or doing some of your own writing for Status and writing some thought leadership pieces about something that particularly inspires or interests you. Then that's a great way to get involved. And in particular, head over to discuss.status.im for a look at the latest research topics, the things that we're working on and thinking about, some of our longer form conversations, and to contribute to our new decentralized OKR process. This is an experiment. It is a work in progress, but it should be good fun to see if we can actually get folks contributing to some of our objectives going forward, offering some key results and thinking about actually doing voting with real SNT on the main chain, so that there is a bit of skin in the game when we curate decisions about how best to move forward. So thanks as ever for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, Andy, actually one question did just come in. Prabuline is asking if there is an update on Electron Desktop. They've missed it, so if you want to give a quick update.
Yes, I mean, the desktop swarm was updated over here. Electron was something that we had one or two devs put together, particularly Andre, because he's a wizard. And that was a proof of concept. There were some pretty sort of major security concerns with Electron and external links. And all of the work on desktop has now moved over to React Native Qt. And making sure that we can actually, like Vitaly says, sort of merge our mobile and desktop branches and handle any of the outstanding bugs between messaging between sort of mobile and desktop clients, and hopefully think about having, multiple logins to different clients implemented at some stage in the future. So all of the desktop work is now React Native Qt, which is quite a bit more interesting than Electron, especially in terms of building a native app in React Native. I don't know if you want to add to that, Vitaly or Max.
No, that's been quite a concise description of what we're doing here.
Cool. So yeah, if that's any question, then I think we'll bid you adieu and see everyone in 2 weeks. It's been a really, really great town hall. Thanks to everyone. And there's just some genuinely amazing and exciting work coming through the pipeline, especially in the last month. It's fantastic to see some of these processes become second nature and actually lead to awesome releases, some really exciting features being implemented, ENS supports, SNT use cases, token sends in the app, desktop work happening at a rate of knots. It's a very exciting time to be a part of Status. And I'm really looking forward to getting more and more of the community involved as we sort of walk the long road to beta and beyond. So yeah, cheers.
Cheers.